Battle through the firmament. Great world. Chapter 501. The Imperial Exterminator. Shaoyan. The Spirit King was slightly startled when he saw the black-robed young man in the distance. Then, he looked at the palm of the black-robed young man. The only remaining eye on the palm of the black-robed young man suddenly burst out with a fierce gaze. It was staring at the overly exquisite three-colored fire lotus. It's a monic flame. When he regained his senses, the Spirit King seemed to have thought of something and his expression changed drastically. Sorry for the long wait. Shaoyan licked his cracked lips and spoke in a low voice. After that, he let out a furious roar and turned his hands. The destructive key became even more ferocious, and it had already locked onto the Spirit King. Xiao, dodge! Shaoyan shouted loudly. He lifted the three-colored fire lotus with one hand and suddenly threw it towards the Spirit King. The three-colored fire lotus was like a shooting star that streaked across the sky. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of the Spirit King. Crack! The instant Shaoyan threw the fire lotus, the Xiao that was trapped by the origin key chains let out a loud cry. The purple-gold origin key around his body rumbled, and it rippled like a layer of death ripples. In an instant, the golden color on the origin key chain that had trapped its body was pulled back. After that, it stretched its four limbs. The seemingly indestructible origin key chain began to crack inch by inch. It did not wait for the Spirit King to make a move. The Xiao had already let out a long roar as it rushed into the distance. Little bastard! Seeing that the Xiao had escaped from his control in an instant, the Spirit King only had time to let out a furious roar. Blood surged within his single eye as veins bulged on his neck. Chi! At the same time, the origin key on the Spirit King's body expanded. In an instant, a huge white blade suddenly took shape behind him. The blade was about 1,000 feet in size, and an endless terrifying aura spread out from it. The wind whistled, as if it was going to split everything in the world. With both hands supporting the huge blade, the Spirit King suddenly swung both of his arms downwards. The white blade struck down like lightning and shot towards the fire lotus that was charging over. The wind and clouds in the world surged as the world seemed to have been split apart. Its might was difficult to match. Under such an attack, the aura of the three-colored fire lotus was actually barely detectable. The Spirit King panted heavily, and a trace of coldness flashed across his single eye. This profound rending astral blade was a real monic arts, and it could be used with the strength of an emperor cultivation warrior. Its power was so great that it could easily destroy a small city. It was his biggest trump card. The only flaw was that the consumption of origin key was too huge. However, when faced with the fire lotus thrown out by Shaoyan, his subconscious told him that he had to use his strongest attack. The Xiao turned around in midair and looked at the confrontation in the distance with a solemn expression. The huge white blade seemed to fill the sky and earth. Even though it was so far away, he could still hear the sound of the air exploding. Shaoyan's three-colored fire lotus was almost suppressed to the point that it did not have any breath left. Looking coldly at the huge white blade that was coming at him, Shaoyan dragged his exhausted body and barely stood in the air. All the origin kiss in his body had been used up because of the formation of fire lotuses. The monic flames formed by the three types of Buddha Fury fire lotuses just now. The aura that spread out caused him to be startled. Fortunately, he was deliberately suppressed by the prestige power spell. He had not been discovered by the Spirit King earlier. The corner of Shaoyan's mouth was lifted into a smile. He suddenly coughed and the emptiness within his body was swiftly transmitted over. At the same time, his vision turned black and his body turned soft, causing him to nearly fall down. Chi! In the blink of an eye, the huge white blade had already split open the space and blasted over. Under the gazes of the three pairs of eyes, it suddenly collided with the palm-sized three-colored fire lotus. Wang! The joy on the Spirit King's face disappeared the moment the profound rending astral blade made contact with the three-colored fire lotus. In the depths of his mind, a terrifying thought involuntarily and wildly grew like weeds. This feeling was just like when he faced Black Nether Emperor back then. His heart was trembling. How is this possible? The Spirit King muttered to himself in disbelief. He immediately reacted. All of his plans had been thrown to the back of his mind. Like a ray of light, he used all of his strength to escape into the distance. His single eye was filled with shock and fear. He really could not imagine it. How could a Monarch Emperor warrior use such a heaven-defying technique? Chi! The moment the huge white blade made contact with the fire lotus, an unexpected explosion sounded out. It was as if a piece of white paper had floated onto the flame. After a slight struggle, it quietly dissipated. The three-colored fire lotus merely shook slightly before it once again rushed towards the Spirit King. Puff! Controlling the fire lotus to lock onto the key of the Spirit King, Xiaoyan could no longer resist the pain that was transmitted from his body. His vision blurred and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body fell downwards. Even though the Monarch flame was the most suitable flame to use the heavenly Monarch fire-burning body, after such a long period of time, with Xiaoyan's current strength, he had already reached his limit. Swoosh! Just before Xiaoyan landed on the ground, the Xiaoao's body flashed and arrived below Xiaoyan, catching him firmly. Swoosh! The fire lotus streaked across the sky with incomparable speed. Even though the Spirit King had used all the strength in his body, he was getting closer and closer to the fire lotus. Bastard! The Spirit King's eyes were filled with shock. He looked at the three-colored fire lotus that was approaching him like a god of death. The fear in his heart became even stronger. Facing the fire lotus, it was as if he had seen the furious Black Nether Emperor. That feeling was that he was completely helpless. Boom! The Spirit King's face was filled with unwillingness. He merely hesitated for a moment before stopping his body. With a loud roar, the boundless origin key within his body spread out. In an instant, a barrier was formed around his body. It was the protective barrier of an Emperor cultivation warrior. Even an ordinary heavenly weapon would need to expend a great amount of effort in order to shatter it. Under the full force of the former, this barrier gave off an indestructible feeling. Swoosh! The three-colored fire lotus drifted over and gently landed on the barrier around the Spirit King. In the next moment, the determination on the latter's face instantly turned into dead ashes. He did not even make a sound before he was swallowed by the three-colored flame. Swoosh! An explosive sound was transmitted from the distant sky, causing half of the sky to be dyed in a scarlet gold color. The clouds were also destroyed. The continuous forest below seemed to have suffered a world-destroying disaster as it turned into ashes in an instant. An endless destructive aura spread. Everything within 100-mile radius turned into dust and scattered. A huge impact came crashing down, causing Xiaoyan and the Xiaoao to be pushed several dozen meters away. Their bodies collided with a huge tree that was 10,000 years old, causing the latter to break into pieces. Cough cough. Xiaoyan's internal organs seemed to have been turned upside down. His face was pale as he coughed. His aura was dispirited and weak. The Xiaoao was so anxious that it scratched its ears and cheeks. It stared at the weak Xiaoyan, and for a moment, it didn't know what to do. I'm fine. Xiaoyan forced a smile and took a deep breath. The darkness in front of him gradually faded away. He had underestimated the origin key needed to fuse the three-colored fire lotus. When he was dealing with Meng Juo and Zhu Man, he had already used up quite a bit of the origin kiss in his body, and now he had fused with the three-colored Buddha Fury fire lotus. The origin key in his body did not continue. That was why this situation had occurred. At the final moment, his control over the fire lotus was extremely small. Otherwise, given Xiaoyan's familiarity with the Monarch flame, the shockwave from the Buddha Fury fire lotus wouldn't have affected the two of them. After consuming a few medicine pills with great effort, Xiaoyan's face regained some of its rosy color. He looked at the distant sky, where the dust and smoke had gradually dispersed. What was revealed was a barren land, and even the mountains had been flattened. The Xiaoao smacked its mouth. It not only recalled the first time Xiaoyan used the Buddha Fury fire lotus in Yi Tianchen's illusion realm, but also the time when he almost destroyed half of the illusion realm. Luckily, LDE had helped him. Now, Xiaoyan's control had clearly increased. His control over the 3 types of monic flames was so smooth. Otherwise, the fire lotus formed by the 3 types of fire lotuses would at least be able to wipe out the entire forest from the capital of chaos. The key of the Spirit King is gone. Xiaoyan stared at the distance. It was a long time before he muttered to himself. There was no joy in his heart. As for the 3-colored Buddha Fury Fire Lotus, he had the confidence to kill an Emperor Cultivation Warrior. Amazing. The Xiaoao shook its head in disbelief. This monic flame fusion skill actually had such power. Hurry up and leave. The commotion here is too great. Some of the experts in Capital of Chaos should be able to sense it. Return to the academy immediately. Xiaoyan's expression suddenly became stern. He shouted lightly and dragged his exhausted body as he ran into the distance. There, Meng Duo's corpse, which had been killed by the Spirit King, was still hidden. Whether or not he could learn the Starlight Silent Step would depend on this guy. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.